That is very 65 million years ago. What's up, everybody? Today I want to talk about Turok, released in 2008 for the PC, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360. Now, when most people hear the word Turok, they typically think of the game released in the 90s for the Nintendo 64. However, like most IPs, we're seeing more and more remakes as time goes on, and Turok is no different. As with the original series, Turok is a first-person shooter, which takes place on a primordial world. Now, I never realized it, but Turok 2008 is actually a Disney property. The publisher of Turok 2008 is Touchstone Games, which is a Disney company. That's right, Turok is a Disney princess, just like Pocahontas. Now, the developer of Turok 2008 is Propaganda Games, and you'd be forgiven for never hearing of these guys. I only know of 2 games they've ever made. The first is Turok itself, of course, and then there's Tron Evolution, and I think there's a reason these guys aren't around anymore, but we'll come back to that. Alright, let's switch gears and talk about the gameplay in Turok 2008. With Turok being a first-person shooter, the design choices are very cut and dry. However, there are certain decisions they made when making this game that I really hate. The first design decision that I really question is the difficulty. If you play this game on normal, get ready for a whooping. I really just want to sit down and play this game and have some fun, but if you play it on normal, get ready to die upwards of 50 times. If you don't know the patterns for the bosses, you're screwed. And when you die that many times, you realize the game is poorly optimized. The loading times are horrendous on PlayStation 3. Not only do you have to sit through the loading screen to get back into the game, there's in-game loading on top of that after you spawn. What were they thinking? And the difficulty wouldn't be that bad if the checkpoints were better paced. There were times where I would get 8 to 10 minutes into a scene, die, and have to repeat the entire area. Maybe I just suck at playing video games. But you know what? There are people out there who want to sit down, play a game, and just have fun, goddammit. One thing that really bugs me about Turok 2008 is the inconsistency in quality of voice acting. Ron Perlman's in the game, and he does an amazing job of his voice acting. And there's other characters in the game that just sound awful.
Good to see you, Turok.
Are there any more survivors with you?
Just me. MG's got what the dinos didn't.
You know, I never realized how much I appreciated lip syncing in games until I played Turok again.
Very funny. Get on that thing while I try to figure out the controls.
Alright, let's talk about the weapons of Turok 2008. On the whole, the weapons in Turok 2008 are pretty typical. You're always carrying 2 primary weapons, you'll always have a bow and a knife. Speaking of the knife, I really enjoy the animations they gave Turok when he carries out a kill. However, I really hate the quick time aspect of it. It really felt off whenever I was trying to do it in game. On top of that, you can't just do it on the fly. You have to have the knife equipped. Then we have the handgun, which fires a single round burst for its primary fire, and a 3-round burst for its secondary fire. Maybe it's just me, but I found the handgun to be quite useless. Next to this, we have the submachine gun, which can fire full auto, and for a secondary, you're allowed to equip a silencer. Why you would equip a silencer is beyond me. The stealth in Turok is for the most part broken. They also give you a pump-action shotgun, which has a flare for the secondary. This can be extremely useful during firefights, where you can fire the flare at your enemies, and it'll attract dinosaurs to attack them. One weapon that I really enjoy in the game is the pulse rifle. It's like a light machine gun. It'll overheat if you use it too much, and the secondary fire is a concussion grenade launcher. I guess there's also a sniper rifle in the game, but I don't think it's that useful. The secondary fire just lets you zoom in. There is also a minigun in the game that has 250 rounds. It functions as you would expect, but the cool thing about it is you can set it down to function as a remote turret. That I liked. The second last weapon that I want to mention is the rocket launcher, and it has a really cool explosion effect. And the last weapon that I want to mention is the sticky grenade launcher. It's a lot of fun to use on dinosaurs and people. And that's really about it for the weapons of Turok 2008. Let's talk about the enemies. Overall, the game has a very good assortment of dinosaurs. The first one that I want to mention is the Parasaurolophus, which I want to mention these are herbivores, so if you're killing these in-game, you're a jerk. The game also has the little scavenger dinosaurs, which I believe are Compsognathus, but I could be wrong. And then of course we have the Velociraptor, which is a staple of the series. I really enjoy fighting them, they have lots of different flavors, and overall I have no complaints. There's also this weird type of tree raptor that'll be shown jumping around in the game. You only fight them 2 or 3 times, but I found them really annoying. They also include the Dilophosaurus, which in this game they're a lot bigger than the Jurassic Park version, which I believe after fact checking are actually more accurate. And then of course we have the granddaddy, the big boy, the monster of monsters, the T-Rex. They use the T-Rex probably 4, maybe 5 times in the game, and I have to say every time you see it, they use it really well. It makes for an excellent showpiece. There is also a giant eel creature that functions as a boss halfway throughout the game. It's a cool design, but the boss fight itself is quite terrible. After that, as far as wildlife goes, there's these giant scorpions, and then there's these flying insects that will attack you, and that's about it for the wildlife. And after this, we spend the other half of the game fighting soldiers that belong to Kane. They have your typical grunts, they have heavy soldiers, APCs, helicopters. Overall, they're a pretty boring affair. Alright, now that we've talked about the enemies of Turok 2008, let's talk about the plot. Please be aware, there are spoilers ahead. At the start of the game, we're introduced to Corporal Joseph Turok, our main character, a new member of Whiskey Company. Prior to joining, Turok was a member of Wolfpack, a special ops team under command of Roland Kane. After committing a series of war crimes, Kane was banished from the military, dropped out, and joined a private military. Whiskey Company has been dispatched to bring Kane back to Earth, to be put on trial for the crimes that he has committed. As we approach the planet, we get to meet the different members of Whiskey Company. The most important in this case is Slade, who is voiced by Ron Perlman. The introduction is rather short, as the ship is immediately shot down and we crash land on the planet. And from this point forward, pretty much most of the characters that are originally in Whiskey Company are killed off slowly. We're then introduced to the various dinosaurs and the mercenary army that's working under Kane, but as we progress, we learn more and more about the world and how it's been evolving. Turok is eventually able to rejoin with Whiskey Company, and they try and find a way off the planet. Unfortunately, tragedy after tragedy ensues.
I got it! Nom 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 nom.
Wait. I caught one.
Freeze! Fan out!
Survived this long.
I wasn't expecting that, were you?
Eventually they manage to get Kane, and Turok manages to kill him, but only 3 of them survive. Turok himself, Slade, and a guy named Shepard. And overall, I just find the plot of Turok to be really bland. There's not really a lot of spice to it, and it gets pretty boring halfway into it. So, in summary, I find Turok has a very unique setting. It's a typical FPS formula, and the enemies can be quite fun. The T-Rex is definitely the shining jewel of the game, and there are a lot of negatives. I found overall that the game could have used a lot more polish. I really didn't like the idea of having 2 weapons in combination with the knife and the bow. I didn't like the difficulty. For me, I found it too difficult. And I found some of the boss patterns to be really annoying. If you don't know exactly what you're doing, you're going to die way too many times. And overall, the game just feels repetitive, and that's never a good thing. If I was going to give this game a score, I would give it a D-. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate you guys watching to the end of the video. And lastly, but most importantly, I hope you all have a great day.